Hello, everyone, and welcome to our August 2020 Mindfulness for Mamas community conversation. It has been a while, and it feels like a whole year has transpired since our spring COVID community conversations. We're really glad to be back and at it again, and super excited to have our facilitator today, Everett.
Hey, Mama. Hey, Mom.
Questions on making school and home mix, and she's got her little one in the beautiful outdoors up near old, you said it was Old Pass Road, right?
That's right. By Trail Creek Ranch.
So gorgeous and inspiring. What, you don't need one of the fake backdrops.
No.
Because you've got the real deal. I'm Kirsten Farney. If you're listening to this and not watching the video, we are recording this call so that those of you who cannot join us live are still able to get all of the juicy tidbits of information and wisdom that Tracy's going to share with us today. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that we are in crazy, challenging times in this pandemic, and you are not alone. We are all, when we come together and our experiences and our lives, it empowers us to really dig deep and resource that resolve, but also to feel in solidarity with this experience. So we just welcome everyone in every place that you're in, coming as you are loved, you are supported, and we are here to help in any way that we can. I'm going to start with a brief meditation, and this is for regaining calm, clarity, and confidence. So wherever you are, if you can try to become physically still, and we know that many of you are with your children, and physical stillness may not be accessible, and that's okay. Just try to choose a posture where you'll be as comfortable as possible. And if you want to, close your eyes. Bring your awareness to whatever is going on for you right now. Give the weight of your body up to gravity. Allow your weight to sink into the points of contact between your body and the chair or the earth or the floor, perhaps. And just notice what sensations are there right now. If you notice any tension or resistance toward painful or unpleasant sensations, gently turn towards them. Accept them as best you can. If you begin to tense around the breath, and let go a little bit more with each out breath. Notice any thoughts as they arise and pass through the mind. See if you can let them come and go without being to identify their content, trying to identify their content. Observe them as if they were clouds in the sky. Notice any feelings and emotions as they arise. Can you let these come and go? Include everything within your awareness with a kindly perspective. Drop your awareness inside the breath and feel the different sensations in the front, back, and sides of the torso. Use the breath to anchor your awareness in the present moment. Breathing in the body, noticing each inhale and exhale. Again and again. Now gently expand your awareness to include the whole body. Feel the weight and shape of the body as it sits, stands, or lies. If you've got any pain or discomfort, try to make sure your awareness stays open. Cultivate acceptance or acknowledgement for your whole experience. Befriend it. Use the breath to anchor your awareness in the present moment. Breathing in the body. Noticing each inhale and exhale. Again and again. And when you're ready, begin to move your fingers and your toes. Open your eyes if they were closed. And feel present to the moment. Thank you. Thanks, Ellie. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for joining us. Well, we are so thrilled to have Tracy, and I just want to thank you, Tracy, for taking the time to be with us today. I know Tracy through her husband, Alex. We were in the Startup Intensive class together, and every time Alex talked about Tracy and the work that she does with and for her family, I was just so inspired. And really, you were the first one, and probably it sounds like the first one that many people thought of as they're looking at this school year and wondering, wow, maybe I should consider all of my options and all of our options. And what I love about talking to you is a calming, non-judgmental presence of, you know, this is what your family has decided to do, and no pressure for anybody else, but that it's inspiring work. And a little bit about Tracy. She has 3 children, 7, 5, and 2 years old. And she's lived in this area since 2008. Prior to her starting her family, or she and Alex starting their family, she worked for Knowles, the National Outdoor Leadership School, instructing backpacking, sea kayaking, and horse packing. She also worked for Creative Energies, designing solar electric systems. I feel like that's a whole conversation that I love to have with you. And currently is homeschooling her 3 children and documenting that journey on Instagram with her account Black Canyon Kids, where you can follow her. Excuse me. She's passionate about the outdoors and is known for her ability to integrate that passion into her family's life in truly inspiring ways. We cannot wait for you to share your wisdom and what you've learned along the way in homeschooling to help resource families who are faced with the challenge ahead of us this school year. So thank you, Tracy.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Yeah. So why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself and your family's decision to homeschool prior to COVID?
Well, I guess it began with Anderson. Anderson's our oldest. We started doing pre-K at Journeys, and that was fantastic. And I found myself wishing there was a school option that would only be 3 days a week. I think that's where it really began. I hated to see my kids having to be inside so much. Even at Journeys, it was, just being inside for so long was something that I wanted to try to avoid. And, the decision was complex for us there were a lot of little bits. I mean, that's one piece. And I had experience, and this is kind of diving deep pretty fast, but I had experience when I was in high school I actually came home. I was sick, so I taught myself in the last 2 years of high school, and I realized how much you can learn in such a short period of time. Like, I could do all my work in 2 hours and then I'd be done. And so I knew firsthand how the structure of the school day was, a lot was going on there other than learning. There's, child management, and really the way that school is set up is to function as daycare. Kids are learning, but the reason it's for the hours that it is, it's to really help out with the child care side of school. And so it can have a really different shape. And so, but even knowing all those things, I was still really nervous about starting homeschooling as well. And I wanted to reach out. We talked to different people. And I think I was really encouraged. We had teacher friends, all these people like, hey, you're an educated person. Your child, you're going to be able to do this. And even with that, I had a teacher here locally at the Kelly School, and she was like, the school system's always here for you. So middle of the school year, you can jump back in. So I think that was the other thing, is it's not something that you can make a decision just to try. And then if it doesn't work, you can go back to the school system. So that's how we set out. And I wouldn't change a thing. It's been fantastic. So maybe from there, let's open it up to some specific questions for folks.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. And I have to say, that piece about knowing that the school system is there for you, it's just hearing you say that, it's like, wow, what a comfort. And I wonder if hearing that has made a difference in how people are feeling, even just that little tidbit about the possible choice to homeschool or consider an alternative to the school district. Ellie, Andrea, do you have any thoughts?
Right.
Rings true. I also think we did that. We did try the homeschool. We traveled, but
Hey, Andrea.
I mean,
we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. It's breaking up a little bit. I apologize. I hate to interrupt you. I just want to make sure we're actually catching what you're saying. Yeah. She's going to walk inside and maybe get a better signal.
Yeah.
let's see.
We can't hear you. No. Maybe try muting and unmuting. That might reconnect the microphone. Oh, she said it's her AirPods on the chat. Okay, Ellie, did you want to say anything? Well,
yes. Okay, I'm unmuted now. I'm very curious. I do personally a lot of student-led learning at home. I have largely homeschooled my kids through toddlerhood. They were both able to do a 2 half-day during the school year, 2 half days of preschool. And but other than that, they've really been with me full time. And as I'm looking to homeschool now, I am a certified educator, both in elementary. Actually, I have 3 certifications, elementary, art, and ESL. And as I look to homeschooling now, I'm kind of in research mode, but describe to me a little bit about your process. Is it all student-led learning, unschooling? I'm a little curious about your curriculum. There's so many angles to go.
Right. No, there are. And I think it meshes also with what, there are a lot, different personalities have different styles that they're comfortable with. I know people that are very structured that maybe even purchase the whole curriculum. And for me, that I was more comfortable with something looser, but I still needed materials because I've never taught anybody how to read. You know, I think my background is more math based and science based, and so I felt really comfortable in those arenas. But again, I was like, okay, our big task here with kindergarten, first grade is to teach my kids how to read. And so I reached out and I got some books and I did a bunch of reading myself, and then I just trial and error. I think the biggest thing that I've learned now is how different kids are. So I now have Anderson and Isla, both of them are reading, and totally different. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. I've got Anderson, my little engineer guy, who is really slow to learn to read. And then I have Isla, who is 5, and she's reading. And she is just like a small little half step right behind Anderson, even though she's 2 years younger. So it's totally different. You get you pick up books that are early reader books, and they give you that range of, what age would that be appropriate for. And I've got Anderson on the upper end, and I've got Isla on the lower end, or, the earlier side. So I just say that because, it gives me, like, yes, every kid is different. I have resources that have worked for us, but there are also resources such as Facebook pages and other mamas, and to help as you navigate your individual child and in the trying to teach them. So there's the learning how to read. I have some math books, but again, I feel I like to kind of do it on the fly, like when it's when the kid is ready to take the knowledge. And so it's like yesterday, for example, Anderson, he's starting to think about his birthday. His birthday's September 18th. And so he says, "Hey, Mama, how many balloons? I want to fill the whole cabin with balloons. How many balloons do we need?" And he's like super serious. And then he's like, "How much is that going to cost?" Because they actually bought earlier in the summer, they bought a package of balloons, and they blew them up, and we have a little sleeping loft, and they filled part of the sleeping loft. And so without even, it's kind of early, but we're working on multiplication. So it was like, okay, we're going to do area, we're going to do volume, we're going to, like, totally new concepts for him. But he was so driven. He's like, "I need to know how many balloons I need." And so we spent like several hours on that one thing when it wasn't necessarily what we were going to be doing that day, but it didn't matter. So it's that's kind of my style. I like to teach when they're interested, because it's way easier. And so just kind of having things in the back of my head. And so similar, I have, like, in my car, I have a little stash of books. And so we're so active as a family. A lot of times we find we read in the car when I'm driving, because we've now finally gotten to the place where I can be driving and still help them. And so, yeah, we do things. I have things on deck. I have things in my backpack. I have a notebook to write things when they're ready to write. So in terms of, so it's a little bit looser maybe than other people, because I know other people will, they have their curriculum, they stay at home until they accomplish that, and then they go out and about. So I think you just have to kind of know what try different things maybe and figure out what works.
Yeah, I feel very aligned with you in a lot of ways. I think I would teach in a very flexible manner that way, and always be open to to new directions and treating the children as individuals. I love everything I'm hearing. And you certainly described student-led learning.
Yeah.
Choice-based learning.
Yeah. And we can be outside. And it also, when you take out the constraints of school, it frees you up so much. Like, so last year, prior to COVID, Anderson was able to, we were able to do all our schoolwork, and then he still had enough energy to ski at a very high level. So he was doing the evolution ski team. He was the youngest kid in the group. And the main reason was because he could rest at home and not have to get up early and go to school. So he was able to do that. And it was almost like, hey, Anderson, remember, we need to work right now because this is really special. This is, you get to do this great ski thing that you love. Because there are times when they're like, no, I don't want to read right now. No, I don't. You know, and so that's a whole nother side of things, is how do you work with your kid to create that structure. And it's no different than getting them to do anything else, like picking their toys up or whatever, but you have to be ready to set those boundaries and say, hey, no, we need to, you know, what we say is we need to read a book every day. You can choose when you do that, but
Right.
that's what we need to do. So
are you getting together
yeah,
with other homeschool families, and you have a cohort for socialization, field trips, little, you know, things together with other families?
Yes, pre-COVID, yes, that was another great thing, is it opens you up to having the time to do a ton of extracurricular things. Now that COVID is happening, other homeschooling families are getting together, and I don't know where they're at right now, but I have been in a support role for my family, and my mother and my grandmother are fragile in the high risk group, and so we decided to stay within our family, and that's something that's been really challenging, but also feel really lucky that I have 3 kids and they all like each other and have fun with each other. So
lots of socialization
I
in the family unit.
Yes, for now.
There's a homeschool blogger that I listen to, Jen from Your Parenting Mojo. And I listened to one of her podcasts recently, and she really believes the family unit is the most important socialization. And I align with that. And of course, the neighbors, and, you know, so I think there's a lot of ways to socialize your children.
And you said, Ellie,
yes,
that was called Your Parenting Mojo?
Yes, it's a fabulous resource. And she teaches us a course called, I have not enrolled yet, I'm curious about it. It's called The Confident Homeschooler.
Okay. I'm going to make sure, I just want to make sure that I can share that.
So it's it's yourparentingmojo.com.
Okay.
And her course is The Confident Homeschooler.
Confident.
Yes.
Great. You know, and as you guys are speaking, what I'm hearing, I think, is a lot of, and Tracy, it sounds like from a young age, you had this experience of, you know, rewriting or dispelling a myth, rewriting a narrative around what school is and needs to be, or what education needs to be, that there is one way of doing it, and it looks very, you know, specific. And yet, when we really sit down with that narrative or that myth, we may find that for our child or for ourselves, a whole other story feels more in alignment. And so what would you maybe say or ask a family who is still feeling like that narrative of the traditional model of schooling, like within a public school district, or even, you know, many private school models look that way, is the most appropriate way, and that there's maybe an inner conflict that they're feeling this, I'm not sure that that's right for my kid, but I also hear that, you know, the fear of my child's going to fall behind, or you know, the lack of structure is going to affect our family in negative ways, that what might help a family and walk down the line of logic to discover what is really true for them?
Well, that's a complicated question. I I mean, I think just circling back to that, you can try it. I think, you know, I feel really comfortable having the kids with me, and I all the time. I actually prefer that. But I think other people don't function in that realm, and so setting up a structure so that that you have a break as being the teacher, the mother, you know, I wear so many different hats, you know, and so figuring out how to get a break in there. I think, you know, and also knowing, like, again, I guess I would just set up, like, hey, okay, maybe you, like, you can also hire tutors. I actually saw an article recently that a lot of people are doing that. You can hire a tutor if you're really worried about it. It's easier, I think, for the people that are starting out with kindergarten. That's definitely an easier place to start than, say, you're pulling them out, I don't know, second, third, fourth grade, even though it's totally doable. So I think, you know, I guess, look inward and try to think about what you need to be successful. And I feel like I had some great background in that inward look from being an old instructor, kind of knowing how I function in a group, how I am as a instructor, whether that's teaching people how to cook outside or set up tents or whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's easy. It's not easy to take this on, but it's also super rewarding and totally doable. And I think you get a lot more. Your kids get a lot more as well. I mean, yeah. You want having? I don't know if I've really answered your question. Do you have more questions about that topic?
That's actually, I mean, I think what you said is super helpful. Is considering the I guess the practical aspects, like you said, how you function in a group. What do I need to feel successful? What do my kids or my partner need to feel successful? And everybody's going to answer that differently. And we don't, I think, because the school system is there and so many of us have relied on it, and was our experience going, wow, you know, we don't necessarily sit down and take the time to ask those questions. And yet now we're in a pandemic where we have the opportunity to revisit that. And a lot of people are. I'm curious, Andrea, because you've homeschooled in the past and done the world schooling, and you have come back to the school system. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, sorry, I had to take off my AirPods. I mean, I think I think, like Tracy's saying, it has to work for your family. It also has to work for your kid. You know, I'm impressed that Tracy was able to complete 2 years of high school, like, on her own, and she had the self-motivation to do it. But not every kid has the same, like, drive and motivation, and some kids need guidance, and some kids need more guidance than others. I wasn't concerned that my kid was falling behind. She's always been too far ahead, and we, you know, schooled very differently. We were traveling, so our hope was to do more of, like, a cultural infusion model. So we homeschooled through museums and dinners and going to different countries and volunteer work and doing that sort of stuff, which is one way of doing it. There's multiple ways of doing it. We opted for more versus less. I have friends who have done cultural immersion, like staying in one place for 3 to 6 months, and then that is a way to get, like, fully immersed in the culture. We just wanted to see as much as we could, and so we did a lot of that, but we ended up coming back to the US because we felt like we needed to have sort of the structure and the guidance of a curriculum, you know, and she needed the social aspect. I think my daughter's in 5th grade, going into 5th grade, and I think the social, I'd say one thing I've come to understand is that the school system is 50% academics and the other 50% social. And I would say that even for my youngest, who's 4, he needed social interaction, and he needed to learn how to be around other kids. And maybe because they're so far in age, I mean, they're 5 years apart, the socialization amongst family just wasn't sufficient. Like it, they needed to have other people to learn social cues from, and learn to collaborate and learn to bounce ideas off of. And I'm grateful she's civic minded, but she needs others to put her in check, so yeah, that's my experience. That's my experience. And I think you always do have the school district to fall back on. It is hard, I'd say, the older you get, to just jump back in, because unfortunately kids are cliquey, kids are, and so if it's hard to expect a kid to just like be able to flow right into the social dynamics that have been established for months prior to them arriving. And I've just noticed, because she's moved around a lot. I mean, we've done this whole like location independent stuff for a little bit. It's she's been in different schools almost every grade, except this will be her first year doing a second year at one place. And it's hard for them to find that group and find their footing. And, even though she says, I'm really good at making friends wherever I go, I don't like it. Like, I want to have roots, and I honor that, and I respect that. And I get that.
Yeah. Well, prior to COVID, we had quite a large, well, not large, but a good group of families that we were hanging out with. So we were able to take advantage of a lot of interesting opportunities, like the Fish and Wildlife Service. They actually had funding, and they had a great educator, and they offered free classes. And there were probably 20 kids in that class. And so you can kind of decide to homeschool and then find a community of homeschools to fill that niche, so like, I think there are ways to try to get that part of it, which is different than if you're traveling, because if you're traveling, you're more on your own, and kind of the way I am right now with my kids, and I see that, like, of course they would love to have more collaboration. So yeah, I think I totally agree with you there, that's really important.
Yeah, I'd actually say there's like an overwhelming amount of resources out there for the different ways of doing it. And I think that's really, as people start thinking about homeschooling now in COVID, it's like, it's just, there's so much. You don't know what to do. Do you do an open source curriculum? Do you do the virtual option? Do you do the all homes? My understanding is the school district is offering this, like the prep virtual program, which is great. I mean, normally you'd pay for that, or you can do just all books. So it's just trying to narrow down what works for your family is almost the biggest challenge.
So what do you think might help with if a family is considering that? Because I agree, and I think that's where our family is gosh, where do we even start? Because there are almost too many options.
Yeah.
Would we benefit from sitting down and writing a list and saying, asking those questions of what's really important to us? How do we work the best as a family? And then maybe searching specific keywords based on what comes up on that list. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I actually have an idea to share. I just emailed this to you, Kirsten. It's from Jen from Your Parenting Mojo. She calls it Your Parenting Mojo School Options Decision Tool. And it's a whole matrix. It's a spreadsheet with an entire matrix, including careers, self-care, how your child's learning style, et cetera, accommodations for your student, all of those things to consider. And then you would kind of figure out how you fall on the matrix. For example, so it's So I sent that to your email, and that can be linked in here so people can refer to that. So it's called the decision tool. For example, like the first question is, how likely is it that each option will protect your family's health? For example, if your child won't wear a mask, will they be in an environment where infection is possible? Likely. Also factor in the risk to your family if your child brings home an infection. And that's what Tracy spoke to, having, family members with autoimmune related or immune compromised family members. And then the second question is, how well do your needs for work, self-care match up with each option? How well does your partner's needs for work, self-care match up? How well does your child do with the level of structure provided by each option? So it just helps you work through, and then you can the options are returning to school, homeschooling, pandemic pod, which could look like, hiring a tutor, and other options. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I will definitely include that link or that information in the notes that we send out with this video later. I appreciate that. Cool. So Tracy, when you were doing the pod before the pandemic hit, how did you decide who you were going to pod with?
It was kind of, I was lucky to fall into some people that were just slightly older. There aren't that many homeschoolers. And so there's kind of two groups. There's one group where people are homeschooling for religious reasons. And then there are the other people. And so, oh goodness, little guy just fell on me. And so we hang out with all the folks that are not religious minded. But what's great is that one of the original folks, Prim, who she's more connected with, she's not religious herself, but she's connected to the religious group. And so she has organized things that bring the whole greater homeschooling group together, which is fantastic. So there are times like this field day that she liked to organize pre-COVID. And it was like, oh my gosh, so many people. And we filled up, oh God, oh my God, you silly goose. Oh my gosh. It's like when they get a little bit older, Eric is, he's 2.5 and they still think they're just like little babies that they can jump on you. So yeah, tons of people. So now he thinks it's funny. So it's kind of like whoever wanted to join this other group, which was mostly like 5 families who all had multiple kids. So yeah. Oh goodness. You're funny. Let's go get some more.
Like during the quarantine when the kids would just pop on the video all the time.
I know.
So great. I love it.
It is fun.
That's great. So, and just so, for the reference that Tracy made to Prim Carl actually helped give me some resources that I shared on our last email as well as our Facebook page. And we're going to try to put that up on our website as well. But she has a Facebook group called Homeschoolers, or Teton County Y, like WY, homeschoolers. And I think what she's trying to do is, make a space and a forum for people who are already doing it, considering doing it, or going to start doing it, to ask questions and connect. And that's such a wonderful resource to have, because anytime you start out on an endeavor like homeschooling, it can feel lonely, I think, or any type of endeavor, and being able to plug into a community is so important. So we will make sure to include the link to those resources again for anyone who hasn't seen that yet. So I wanted to ask, because we live in this beautiful location, you know, paradise on earth, especially in the summertime right now. And yet the seasonal changes can be really drastic and quite harsh. I'm curious to know, homeschooling in winter and cabin fever being a real thing, as we all know, what are some ways that you, I guess, you know, help to stay sane in the winter with your kids home?
Are and you're directing this to me?
Yeah,
Is
sorry.
that a question?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yes, of course. No, I was distracted for a minute. Well, it's actually, I don't know. I feel like winter is quite busy. I mean, yeah, just running all around to all the different things. So last winter, for example, the kids were skiing. Anderson was skiing both days. It was actually like, it was like 3 days of the week, and that was pretty intense. And then Isla would ski as much, and so we were trying to get out skiing as much as possible. We would do art classes at the Center for the Arts. We would do there's ice skating classes. I hung out with we did gymnastics. I mean, it was kind of like every morning we would hustle and get our stuff done. We would have some sort of activity on deck, you know, like yeah, we had big air for Anderson at Axis, and Isla had gymnastics. I mean, it was incredibly busy. And then we would still do our other things. The Historical Society was offering classes to us. We would go do that once a month. And then also we had classes at the Fish and Wildlife Service, at the Greater Yellowstone Visitor Center, which was fantastic. So that would be like all morning. We did a few, Prim organized a few things with the Raptor Center, which was great. And then we would go cross-country skiing at kind of around the cabin. We would cross-country ski up to the cabin, our cabin, and at Trail Creek Ranch. It was kind of never ending. It was a very busy time, actually. So no, I don't think cabin fever is necessarily a problem, except for maybe coming into this winter is a little bit different. You gotta, Axis is doing gymnastics, skiing is, and then you just have to decide if you're going to do those things. We're trying to figure that out right now as a family, but it is happening. If you don't have, if your risk is not high for COVID. So
Right.
yeah. And so I think all the other homeschooling people are go ahead. Okay.
I think my following questions have to do with, I suppose, on the caregiver or, you know, instructor homeschooling primary parent on their side, you know, about strategies that you might employ that kind of help you to stay balanced and mindful, you know, aspiring to, even if you've been doing this for many years, aspiring to homeschool, there are challenges, and as we've all experienced, plans that just get disrupted, you know, by unforeseen circumstances like a pandemic. And what has allowed you to stay centered and maybe stay in the flow instead of, you know, going against it?
I don't know. I think our lives maybe are a little bit different. I mean, the best thing for us is for me to not read the news and just do our daily thing, because our daily thing is pretty fantastic. Like all summer we're here at the cabin, and yeah, we just dive into projects here. And the kids, it's amazing. I was bracing myself for the kids to be complaining more about the lack of social interactions, but they're very content here. So I don't know, restate a little bit more about that question. So it's,
I'm thinking back to the moments this spring personally. I hope I'm not the only one. When, you know, even though I was like, oh, I've kind of got a plan, we're in a groove and this isn't easy, but we're doing it. And then, you know, things just shifted again and we'd get off course. And you know, there were just times maybe felt like my resilience levels were low and was not able to course correct in a way that felt, you know, true to myself and centered and balanced and kind and compassionate to my children. And, you know, for me personally, weather it plays a huge factor in that. But I'm just curious. I'm always curious to know how other people weather those storms and find the center.
Yeah, I think the spring was really hard for us too. You know, it felt like the mud season lasted forever. I think what was unique about that time, the spring, was how much there was unknown. There was just a lot of, at least from my perspective, fear about COVID. I just remember being totally, how do we prepare for this? How do we keep ourselves safe? Like, what should we do? I feel more comfortable with it, if you will. I don't know if other people feel that way. So yeah, I think those times are challenging, and I am lucky. Isla is the kid that I have a harder time with is Anderson. So he just sometimes needs a little more direction, a little more of a bigger project to undertake, and so I do have the ability to. He has the ability to go and hang out with Alex at the job site, and so it's real that was a savior that Anderson could go, and that was something he loved, and it was a relatively safe. So Alex works construction. For any of those who don't know, that's my husband, and he's self-employed, and so he was able to have Anderson come and essentially, you know, work side by side with him, and that was really meaningful for both of them. And that helped us, you know. But yeah, in those, like, yeah, how do you keep yourself sane because you are the only one? And so trying to, I think other families, you know, that were willing to, they would, you know, like, say I have a friend who unfortunately just moved, but she just had one child and she's a single mom, and so she was, you know, reaching out to other families to help with that, you know, like, give yourself a break, because I think to stay on top of things and stay centered, you as the lead person need to have a break so that you can plan and kind of have those activities or know the direction of your homeschooling, and that takes time. So you know, creating that time for yourself is sometimes hard.
Yeah, I think so many families, even those who weren't homeschooling, and parents who, you know, both parents are working and rely on two incomes in order to, you know, keep food on the table and have a roof over their heads. It's finding those breaks can be so difficult, and yet they're crucial. You know, this pandemic has really pointed out what is essential and non-essential, and I think having that space to care for yourself and offer yourself the compassion and gentleness to be with the very difficult experiences and emotions is absolutely essential. Andrea and Ellie, I know that both of you have different practices, and any insight about your experience there and how you made it work.
You know, I think it's the harder times of life that you really need the modalities that, you know, help you, that give you calm and restore you and help you keep your chi. And it certainly is true that during this pandemic, you need to reach for those. And if that's communing with the woods and hiking for one person, and it's sitting on a cushion and meditating for another person, a yoga class, seeking those resources, essential oils, what are those things that support you, and daily practice, that's the thing that builds resiliency, doing that every day. And then during the hard times, continuing to do it, because that's when you need all the support, to keep your immune system up and keep your fight or flight, your parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system in alignment. And so certainly, yes, I have a morning practice and an evening practice, and it's not very long. I have breath work for about 10 minutes in the morning, and then some calming breath work right before bed. That really has been very important for me right now.
That's great. Thank you.
I don't know that I have like I don't know, I just kind of go with it. I mean, people getting out and I know sort of what I need people. So I just that's how I found Mindfulness for Mamas. I just needed support from a group of humans, and that's why I got it. But I'm still figuring it out. I don't think I have it all down, sorry, there's a truck right driving by.
It's a journey. But like you said, knowing that, okay, socialization is super important, and it takes on different forms in a pandemic, but each of us needs those different things, knowing ourselves well enough to know what works. I'm wondering for you all how these conversations have gone with your partners. Tracy, you have described being in a support role, which it's interesting depending on the perspective that you look at. Because my husband, especially this spring, I would say, gosh, I wish you were home, because he didn't have the ability to work from home. And I think in his eyes, he's like, I'm supporting you being able to do this by going to work, and I'm thinking I'm supporting him, and it's this mutual exchange of support that happens, and still this conversation of what to do with school and how to approach this can be so hard depending on what perspective you take, and what all of y'all's experience has been communicating about these decisions with your partners. Oh, Tracy, you're on mute still.
You're right. Thank you. I try to keep out the baby noises. So Alex works all the time. Finding the fact that Anders could go to the job site with him was huge, because other than that, there isn't a lot of support. And so, but I think that's where we can come together in groups like this, and also in other face-to-face groups. But yeah, having those people having the support it is super helpful. So yeah, it can be really hard with your partner for sure. But Alex was right in there. I mean, we made this decision together. But sometimes I have to remind him how much I'm doing, because keeping the house together, educating the kids, in a gentle way, just to make sure that, we're supporting each other, right? He's working and I'm not working, but I'm doing everything else for it to work. But I don't know. I don't think I'm unique in that necessarily.
You're just not employed outside of the home, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, I support him, but yeah, go ahead.
It's real work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And many would argue it's the hardest work. I think so many people thrown into having their kids at home. The spring proved that the struggle is real, and this is very hard work. And we appreciate, caregivers and all that they do, and teachers and all that they do to help bring up our kids and love on our kids and teach them, because it's not easy.
No, it takes a lot of patience, for sure. And to just get yourself in a patience, because I hate it when I lose my patience with the kids. It's the worst. And that's the hardest bit, is for me to remain in a space where I can be articulate, you know, like instead of getting, you know, frustrated. Here. Are you still there?
Tracy, could you speak to parents if they're potentially considering both working, potentially one part-time, the other, you know, more in the full-time role, and sharing a little bit of the homeschooling? Could you speak about the challenges of trying to do maybe a 4 to 6 hour a day job at home and as well as homeschooling, which is a consideration for me? If I had this opportunity to do some work at home and then also homeschooling, you know, doing that juggle, and then my husband and I really working craftily around each other in our careers.
Yeah, I decided to go on a little walk with Eric, and now we're at this abandoned cabin, and he wants to climb on something that's dangerous. So just give me a second to redirect. So maybe Andrea can, I don't know if she has any thoughts there.
I mean, I can't imagine having done it while working. So I mean,
Okay.
that's me. I feel lucky that I didn't need to work while we were trying to do that, and needed my husband. We had two competent adults on one child, because the 4-year-old really like didn't need, you know, we weren't doing any academics or anything like that.
Right.
I'm sure it's doable because people do it.
Yes, people do it. Yes, totally.
People do it, so it's doable. But yeah, it's just gonna, and I think you're giving up probably some time of you and your husband being together, right? So like something's gotta give. I think that's the bottom line, is it's gonna have to be, you're gonna have to give up something somewhere.
Certainly.
You'll gain something somewhere too, right? You'll gain really special time with your child. Maybe you'll gain really special time as a family too, if you're able to do some of the curriculum stuff together with your partner and your kids. But then maybe you lose some one-on-one time with your partner. I mean, I don't know, you know, and that's just the nature of it. But whichever way you choose, even if you go to a public school, like, you're giving up something always. So
I love that.
I mean, and maybe just being structured and saying, okay, like, this is what's going to work for me. Like, Monday, Wednesday mornings is my day to work. Tuesday, Thursday, honey, that's your time to work.
Right.
Friday, we do things as a family. I don't know. It's just an idea, but
yeah, I can't tell you, Andrea, I feel like every time we talk, I'm like, your loving dose of reality and forthrightness is like, I need to hear. I tend to be, you know, a real idealist, and I don't want to give up anything. And I think, oh, you know, like the whole, you can do it all, and we can do it all as long as it's all of the things are what we actually want, and that there are some sacrifices required. I mean, even thinking about, well, you know, if we want to make, so I also work part-time, my husband works full-time. If we want to make clear, maybe we're going to have to sacrifice on some of the flexibility. Yeah, let's do it. More structured system, so that we can have it all scheduled out and all the pieces are there. But that, you're right, something does have to, in order to get what we really want, and like, what is our highest priority.
right.
Yeah. A waterfall near you, Tracy?
Yeah, can you hear that water? I was trying to find a place I came down to the creek. But of course, I think it might be.
Tracy, that is the perfect antidote to the decision-making matrix that I'm going through.
Well, I think, you know, we're coming up on an hour, and I think we've got time for maybe one more question or closing remark. Is there anybody that has a question, a burning question want to ask?
I would just add one more thing to that, like, of that comment on having to give up something. And it's, you know, at times it's going to feel like the grass is always greener the other way. And you're going to say, oh, maybe I made a huge mistake. I should have done this instead of that. And you do have to give it a little time. And my husband always said, like, we won't see the dividends of this really hard thing that we like went through until much later. You know, it may be 15 years from now that we realize why it was so valuable to have done what we did and why, you know, we switched. And I remind myself of that all the time, because otherwise I feel like I would have given up sooner, or, you know, it would have been easier to just felt like we, you know, this was a fail, like abort, like end of it, like don't even try it. And so I'm hopeful that that's true. I'm hopeful that maybe, you know, I'll see it 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and we'll look back and say, wow, what an opportunity, you know, that was. And it was really hard in the moment. It was really challenging, but it was an incredible opportunity. And I think if you take everything that's going on with COVID and everything, I mean, there's so many memes and poems, and as much as it's been a burden, and it's been uncomfortable, it's also an incredible opportunity for us to rise to the occasion and do what feels right for our family, and take those, you know, it'll be a time for everyone to remember forever, you know. Yeah. So creating happy memories is like the underlying goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for saying that, Andrea. I appreciate that message of hopefulness.
I think it's totally doable. I think if anyone's considering it, it's worth a try. I think the upside is pretty amazing. So I just would encourage people to do it, and that there are lots of people out here doing it, especially now. So even if you just end up meeting here in this forum, there are lots of people with great ideas, and hopefully we get to a place where we can all be in person, but let all our kids run around and have a great time, because that will happen soon, I think. But probably before the end of the school year, you know, we'll get to a better place.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Sully, did you want to say anything before we say goodbye?
I love both those words, your parting words, you two. And I think it's just important for people to really sit with these big decisions, let it sit, and you know, really reflect. Oh, I had a call coming in. Did you get and really reflect on, you know, your core values and what's really standing out right now. And I know one big thing and one theme in my life is I want to be with my children. I love it. And that brings me some of my greatest joy in life. So that's been guiding me in this homeschooling decision. Yeah.
Agreed.
I have to say, I was inspired. I've got one of those like quote a day calendars, and I was really inspired by this quote today by Eleanor Roosevelt that said, "You must do the thing you think you cannot do." And yeah, you know, like how relevant that is to our conversation, and knowing that really the only thing that's guaranteed is this moment, and for us to be in it and be in it with the people that we love, doing the things that fuel us and give us a sense of purpose and meaning. And that is what is really going to make, you know, our world the place we want it to live in. And when our children, no matter what context they see us and each other operating in, whether it's in the school district or it's at home or it's some mix of the two, when they see us modeling that those are the lessons that they will take with them the rest of their lives and learn to embody themselves. So I see you all three of you women doing that with your families, and I can't tell you how much I admire it. And I thank you for being here today and being there for your families and part of this community it really is an honor to journey with you all in this conversation and here on out. So thank you again. For anybody who's listening, if you've got more questions about Mindfulness for Mamas or homeschooling, I would encourage you to visit Mindfulness for Mamas, and that's FOR mamas.org. And we have Facebook page and group, as well as reaching out to Prim Carlton on the homeschoolers, the Teton County, Wyoming homeschoolers Facebook group. We will link all of this stuff, and follow Tracy at Black Canyon Kids on Instagram as well. Thanks again, you guys. Have a wonderful day.
We will. You too. You too.